joined by him for an hour on Friday. He's got a new role with the show during football season. We're excited for it, and he will now join us the day after, even though today's a little bit different because the game happened on Friday. But the day after Eagles games, he will join us for the check-in at 8:10 from Inside the Birds. And, of course, here at 97.5, the Fanatic, Andrew DiCecco joins us. Andrew, good morning. How are you doing today?
How are we?
We are doing great. Eagles got the win, which is obviously the ultimate goal to get the win. But it wasn't necessarily pretty, and it's turned into a Jalen Hurts conversation. So, Andrew, being the great football man that you are, the evaluator that you are, talk about Jalen Hurts and his Week 1 performance.
Yeah, I thought early on you saw him sort of pressing a little bit. It didn't look like he was overly comfortable. I do think the field conditions impacted both teams, Andrew, but kind of take it a step further. There were plays that were made that came down to decision making for Jalen Hurts that you can't necessarily look to the field conditions as something that was the drawback. That underthrown pass in a sea of Packers green to Devontae Smith, that was a pass you can't throw. That's a pass that a young player would throw. I thought the pass across his body at the end of the game that was intercepted and nearly was the turning point of that game, he can't make those decisions. But I thought you saw the good and the bad from Jalen Hurts, sort of as he's trying to navigate this new offense. And a pass to Saquon Barkley, the 18-yard touchdown on the wheel route was tremendous. A pass to A.J. Brown was really good as well. So I think he's kind of saw the good and the bad from Jalen as he's really trying to learn and find his way in this offense. But there's a lot to take away from this game. I think when you look at Week 1, you have to, and the circumstances surrounding this game, the objective is to survive and advance. Then let's see if he's able to take from what he learned in this game and implement it on Monday night.
When you talk about the performance of Zach Bond and how he made his impact, what to you think is sustainable about what we saw on Friday night? Because, again, we don't want to overreact in the other way overly positively on something as if it's going to be a trend. What's sustainable about what you saw?
That's fair. And if you remember, John, you, me, and Andrew, we were talking throughout the offseason, and one of the things that I'd mentioned was I wasn't as overly concerned about the linebacker play as many were, because you're seeing the growth and development of these players from the spring through the summer. Now, are they going to be all-world players? No, but are they going to give you a baseline level of production that you can rely on week in and week out? Absolutely. I don't expect Zach Bond to give you the 15 tackles and 2 sacks that he had on the opening night, but I saw a player that was improving with his instincts. He's learning a position that he hasn't played a ton of snaps in. His ability to kind of flow to the football and know where the play was going, and his football intellect. Those are certain qualities that I think really endeared himself to Vic Fangio, who really was, who I think was the driving force behind bringing him to Philadelphia. So I think that you'll see him be able to be a player that the Eagles can rely on week in and week out. I think he's going to give up some plays. I think he's going to struggle to get off blocks at some points. But I think he's going to give you a level of play where he's not going to necessarily hurt you and be a reason why you see some leaks in on the defense.
What was your evaluation of Bryce Huff's first game in an Eagles uniform?
Well, the context is important here, Andrew, because I didn't believe that he didn't show a whole lot, and I think that leaves some cause for concern, especially when you look at in the summer and you didn't see the consistency every single practice. You see practices in which he would dominate, and then others where he should win more matchups that he should win the matchups that he wasn't. But I think you have to look at the field conditions and the position that he plays, how that can impact the edge rusher when you're talking about angles and you're talking about leverage and things like that, whereas it doesn't necessarily impact someone like a Zach Bond when you're kind of going sideline to sideline and attacking downhill. So we'll have to see if he still looks this way, the way that he looked on Friday night on Monday. I think that then you could start to have that conversation. But from what I saw, it wasn't overly encouraging, but I think, when you look at Week 1, you don't necessarily want to hit that panic button just yet.
What about Nolan Smith? I mean, as far as
Nolan Smith had some quality rushes in the first half.
I was expecting something because he got a lot of snaps, didn't he?
He got more snap. He got one more snap than Bryce Huff. So I saw him get some quality rushes in the first half, but he wasn't able to get home. And then later on, in the second half, he was really struggling to get off blocks. And I mentioned this to you guys the other day. for me, with Nolan, he seems to struggle with his hand usage. He's been able to get by with athleticism and his explosiveness, and I think that's going to come with time. But I did see him rush the passer with some success, but he wasn't able to kind of get home. But really, no one was except for Zach Bond.
As Business Hotline, Andrew, who is the player that you believe graded out the best for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then who do you think was the Eagle that graded out the worst on Friday night?
Oh, I'm kind of cheating here because I know that Reed Blankenship graded out pretty high. He had, I believe, an 86. But to my eye, Andrew, I would say Zach Bond. Given the level of scrutiny that was placed on the linebacker position, I thought he really answered the bell, made a lot of tackles. He got that sack in the critical moment at the end of the game, and he was just everywhere all over the field. So I think, to me, he was somebody that I came away most impressed with. And I would also say Devontae Smith, coming out with that 2nd and 13 in the waning moments of the fourth quarter, and then 2 plays later coming out with that 2nd and 8, catching that 11-yard pass. Really critical, really clutch player from Devontae, who I believe was going to be offensive player of that game. And then looking towards the other side of the spectrum here, I would probably say that Bryce Huff, just given he was the Eagles' big-ticket free agent addition. He didn't get any pressures, and I just didn't think that he elevated his performance when they needed it. Now, there are other variables that go into play there, but he would be my pick.
Andrew, in the possession before the final drive, where the Eagles bled 7 minutes off the clock, where Jalen threw the interception and then had previously almost threw the pick six, do you put any of that on play calling, or do you put it on the shoulders of Jalen Hurts?
In that moment, John, it's got to go on the shoulders of Jalen Hurts. You know that's a high risk throw for one, and he's lucky that the defensive back on the play before the interception was dropped, because otherwise that's 6 points the other way. And again, the following play, you can't throw across your body in that moment, and he threw it short of his target. So those are plays that you can't chalk that up to needing patience, to needing to kind of find your footing in that offense. Those are decision-making plays that I think that the Eagles are very lucky that can ultimately burn them in the end.
So is this Jalen? Like, we're trying to figure out how Jalen Hurts played, and obviously he wasn't fantastic. It wasn't the worst game of his career. Is this who he is? Is this something that he can get better at? Is this remember, you have preached patience with the offense. He himself said this is a 95% new offense, where his struggles because it was week 1 and he didn't play in the preseason. Like, what went into Jalen Hurts' okay week 1 performance against the Packers?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I don't necessarily know that I would chalk it up to not playing in the preseason, because we're really only talking about what would have been a couple of series on August 9th, and then it's sort of like pack it in, we'll see you in a month. I don't know how much you can really grow from that. I think this is more so, Andrew, learning the new offense and being able to kind of unveil it for 4 quarters and get everybody on the same page. You saw the snap with Cam Jurgens. There were certain plays in which it looked like he was thinking a little bit too much. He was holding on to the ball a little bit too long. Those 2 interceptions, of course, were egregious, and they come down to decision-making. But I think he's really a player that's trying to learn the offense, I guess, in real time. And there's certain plays that show you that he's come a very long way in terms of processing and getting the football where it needs to be. I think as we move forward, week 2, week 3, week 4, you're going to see him become more comfortable. And I think on Monday night, you're going to see an offense that really starts to hit the ground running pretty early. So I think I would chalk that up largely to just kind of getting familiar with the new offense.
Nick Sirianni looked mighty comfortable on the sideline the other night, under control, and I think he did a hell of a lot better with clock management than his counterpart Matt LaFleur did.
He absolutely did. And I know a lot of folks like to laugh and mock the whole CEO, head coach title and the role that he was going to be undertaking this year, John. But him being able to kind of take a step back and get that 30,000-foot view allows him to be able to really refine that area of his game. So I think he did a really good job in that regard.
Andrew, you're the man. This is going to be a lot of fun all season Friday for the incredible hour you spent with us, but this is going to be something that we can't wait to do every single week following an Eagles game as well at 8:10. So we'll be talking to you again Monday of next week for an hour, and then for 10 minutes on Tuesday. So get used to us, Andrew. We're going to talk to you twice next week.
I can't wait, guys. Always love talking football with you.
You're the man. There he is, Andrew DiCecco from